Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, victory for Senator Antonio Trillanes.
Judge Soriano na single-handedly he upheld justice and the rule of law in our country.
After a regional court junks the petition demanding for his arrest.
What we see is two co-equal courts contradicting one another.
But the decision also upholds the presidential proclamation voiding his amnesty. And the Justice Department believes the fight is far from over.
Precisely, the court said the proclamation voiding his amnesty is void. So, what will be the legal basis for Trillanes to be shouting with joy?
Former Senator and AFP Chief Rodolfo Biazon and constitutionalist Father Ranhilio Aquino join us live. And later, headless chicken monster, a rare discovery that you shouldn't be afraid of. That's for today's In Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. The Office of the Solicitor General will go to the Court of Appeals, hoping to get a reversal of the Makati Regional Trial Court Branch 148's decision on the case of Senator Antonio Trillanes. Trillanes on Monday says the court's decision is a victory for justice and the rule of law after it junked the Justice Department's petition to issue an arrest warrant for the senator's dismissed coup d'etat case. Meanwhile, the Justice Department says the case is far from over and they are ready to exhaust all legal remedies. Let's go straight to the source of the story. He's a former senator and Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief, Rodolfo Biazon. Senator, good to see you again. It's been quite a while. Sir, kamusta na ho kayo?
Okay naman, I am enjoying my APOs.
Your apos?
Yes.
Ilan na ho ba apo ninyo?
11.
Naku, ang dami na.
Yes.
Well, all right. It's good that you enjoy it. You have served the country for how long, sir?
Oh, more than 60 years.
60 years.
About 40 years as a soldier and 21 years as a legislator. And somewhere there, you throw in some consultancy positions.
Senator, I wanted to ask you first and foremost, you've been quite vocal about this amnesty, the revocation of the amnesty on Senator Antonio Trillanes. Sabi niyo po, if I remember well, that the President cannot unilaterally do this.
That is
Ganun po
correct.
yung inyong naging posisyon. So, because you said that it needs Congress's approval.
That is correct.
What's your reaction on Judge Andres Soriano's decision not to issue an arrest warrant?
Well, it is a welcome development because when the President withdrew his order of arrest without warrant to give way for the rule of law, he said that. That's that's done. And now the ruling of the court came in.
Yeah.
But this thing is not yet over. We have, kasi there are two issues in this issue, in this conversation. The first issue is the order of arrest, you know, and the President allowed the rule of law to step in, and so he withdrew his order of arrest. But the more fundamental issue to be resolved here is the issue of the validity of the grant of amnesty. You have to remember, Pinky, that the grant of amnesty is a shared power. But in the same way as a lot of things are shared powers between the executive, the legislature, and even the Supreme Court. Kaya nandiyan yung tinatawag na check and balance.
Balances.
So, here we have to have a resolution. And the resolution, I think, by the judiciary will have to be to go up as far as high up as the Supreme Court. So nandoon pa yan. So this thing
May
is not
question
yet
pa doon
over.
before the Supreme Court. That's right. Because it is what? How would you describe it? Victory for now? A temporary victory for Senator Antonio Trillanes, maybe?
Well, it's a relief for him insofar as the other issue is concerned. And the first issue is the issue of him being arrested. All right?
Doon.
But the second issue And to me, that is more fundamental to the principle of check and balance, which is the sharing of power in the grant of amnesty between the legislature and the executive. As a matter of fact, it does not even stop there. It can still go up to the Supreme Court, which is now the case.
Yes, because that is the petition, isn't it,
Yes.
filed by the senator before the Supreme Court?
Yes.
And the Supreme Court said, I'm going to remand that, this is how I understand it, Senator, to the RTC, look into the factual issues.
That is correct.
So that's what Judge Andres Soriano resolved.
Exactly. On the issue of arrest,
Yes.
the other half of his decision, which is the validity or legality of Proclamation 572, is another issue.
That's where I
And
wanted to
that
go.
has got to be resolved in the
By-
Supreme Court.
By the Supreme
By the
Court.
Supreme Court.
Okay, but it is, so when they say that, when you have presidential spokesperson Sal Panelo saying that, and even DOJ Secretary Menardo Guevara saying that this is not a victory for Senator Antonio Trillanes, you believe that?
Not a total victory.
Not a total victory. Actually,
it
you're
is
right.
a
that's-
relief. It is a relief on the issue of him being ordered to be arrested.
Yep.
You know, the president said, okay, I issued the order of arrest without warrant. But he withdrew it and said, we will allow the rule of law to prevail. And the rule of law comes in the form of a court ruling on the order of arrest.
Exactly. But here's another question, Senator. What are your thoughts on, you have Judge Soriano saying, looking into the factual issues, at sinabi po niya na nag-apply si Senator Trillanes, nag-admit ng guilt si Senator Trillanes, yet you have 150 under Judge Alameda, Elmo Alameda, saying that issuing an arrest order against Senator Trillanes, and the fact is, how I understand it, was that the evidence presented to both 148 and 150 are the same.
Okay. You are right, no? That they are supposed to be the same. So, which of the two judges are correct? That is the question. Because, of course, yung kaso kay Alameda is the case of rebellion. The more serious offense is coup d'etat. So, pero all of this is dependent on a resolution of the question of validity of the grant of amnesty.
Doon pa rin babagsak.
Doon pa rin babagsak. And that's the reason why we need the Supreme Court to provide the resolution to this issue. Because to me, this issue goes beyond the personality of Senator Trillanes.
Or President Rodrigo Duterte.
Yes. This goes into the heart of a basic fundamental principle of sharing of power. Sharing of power comes in many forms, like the budget, grant of amnesty, and the other one is treaty.
Martial law, sir.
Martial law. Which ano, hindi porque sinabi ng presidente, eto na, yun na.
Opo.
Hindi eh. Because in most cases, there is a sharing of power among the three branches of government in the resolution of a particular issue.
And again, that's because to institute checks and balances
That is correct.
within the government. So
That
it's
is
a
correct.
relief for the senator. Obviously, Senator Antonio Trillanes very pleased with the order
Yes.
Of the judge.
It's a relief.
It's a relief.
Not a victory, it's a relief.
But you know, Senator, when you actually talk to other people, yung in your private conversations, ano, they're saying that itong si Judge must have undergone a lot of pressure. Ang tagal din niya pong inaral ito bago siya nag-issue
Yeah.
ng resolution. 150 was quite fast, but also maybe, sir, because this is a heavier case. It's not
Yeah.
rebellion. It's
Yeah.
in fact coup d'etat.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on his decision? Ito, si Judge Soriano, sir.
Yun nga sinasabi ko, it had provided a relief for President,
Senator Trillanes.
and a implementation of what the president in the first place wanted,
Yeah.
which is the rule of law. That's the reason why he withdrew his initial order for a warrantless arrest.
Yeah, but let's be frank, Senator. Obviously, the Department of Justice would have rather had this judge issue an arrest warrant and a whole departure order against the senator. That's exactly why they filed that.
Definitely. So, kaya nga sabi ni Secretary Guevara, split yung decision eh.
Yeah.
One in favor,
Yeah.
one against. But the one against is something that no one, nobody, no agency can resolve except the Supreme Court.
Let me ask you, though, how you feel about amnesties given, for example, to soldiers and even to policemen with a situation like this at hand. Namemeligro ho ba ang pagbigay ng amnestiya because the President can issue a proclamation order revoking it ab initio,
Yes, sir.
possibly because he did not allegedly file and he did not allegedly admit guilt?
The question now is the credibility of any resolution of the case by the Supreme Court. And central to the decision of the Supreme Court is upholding the principle of a sharing of power.
Yeah.
You know, sino ba kung mali ang amnesty granted to Trillanes, to Senator Trillanes, sino ang nagkamali doon? President Aquino issued the proclamation and granting amnesty to a class. A class, the implementation of which came in the form of Secretary Gasmen individually naming those to be granted kasi yun ang implementation. Now, the second possible error might have come from Congress itself.
Why?
Because Congress had to concur. Congress had to concur to the proclamation. Without the concurrence, there is no proclamation.
But Senator, there was no application just yet. When President Aquino ordered the amnesty, when he directed the amnesty and Congress concurred, I think that would be in 2010. The
2011.
2010, sir. The application
okay.
happened in 2011.
Exactly.
So ibig ko sabihin, sabi ng Presidente, I'm going to grant amnesty. Sabi ng Congress, I'm just simplifying it, sir.
Concur.
Okay, game kami. Okay kami sa amnesty. 2011, sila nag-file.
Exactly.
So why could there be possible liability in Congress? Hindi nyo naman alam, sir, sino mag-a-apply ng...
Exactly. Pero without that concurrence, there is no
True.
grant of amnesty. So, the presidential action of President Aquino and the action of Congress will have to be implemented. And that implementation comes in the form of Secretary Gasmen naming the individuals. And that came in 2011.
Yes, because it depends on who actually
Exactly.
applied for the amnesty, which, again, is the meat of the issue here because they said, government is saying that he did not apply for an amnesty. Sir, if you were to apply for an amnesty, sabihin po natin kayo, will you keep your application, sir? Because debate ho yan eh.
Yeah. Well, yes, I will if I am the but that's because of his reliance probably on the procedure being used is credible, like record keeping of the government. That the original of the amnesty application is in the custody of the government. So, naiwala ko yung aking sarili kong hawak, nakopya ko, pero I expect the government to be able to.
So you're saying you would have kept a copy? It's a very important document.
Yes.
You would have kept the copy. But isn't the certificate, just before we go on a break, isn't the certificate of amnesty basis, sir, that you applied for an amnesty?
Exactly.
So why would you keep a copy, sir, if a certificate of amnesty should suffice?
Exactly.
So that you're saying the amnesty certificate of amnesty, tells the public that Senator Trillanes applied, and Senator Trillanes admitted guilt. Tama ho?
Yes.
All right, we'll be taking a short break. Former Senator Rodolfo Biazon will still be with us. And we'll also be joined by constitutionalist Father Ranhilio Aquino. This is the SARS on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching the SARS on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, former Senator Rodolfo Biazon, and also joining us on the line, a CONCOM member and constitutionalist Father Ranhilio Aquino. Father Aquino, thank you so much for taking our call, sir.
Good morning, Pinky. Good morning.
So, I want to first get your reaction on the decision of Judge Andres Soriano, sir.
Yes. Well, like any court decision, I'm in respect of it. The only problem I have with it is that I would have found it more consistent had the honorable judge declared the presidential proclamation that found amnesty in respect to Senator Trillanes void as itself void. In short, the judge, to my mind, would have done better by not upholding the validity of the proclamation so that it would be consistent with his finding that Senator Trillanes was entitled to the benefits of amnesty.
So that's a conflict for you, Father?
Well, it does create some problems because the proclamation of the President, if you will recall, was not a proclamation that declared the amnesty as such void. It only said that in respect to Trillanes, the amnesty was void. See? That was the proclamation. Now, for me, I have always maintained that is not properly a matter for presidential action. That is a matter for judicial determination. So it would have been more appropriate, more proper, and to me more constitutionally correct for His Honor to have held that the proclamation itself is void and then to proceed to resolve the request for the issuance of a warrant of arrest.
If they talk about, Father, factual issues that needed to be resolved by the Makati RTC, would upholding the constitutionality of the proclamation or not be a factual issue? Or should that be resolved by the Supreme Court, Father?
Exactly. You know, in my Facebook post, I said, Judge Alameda and Judge Soriano would have avoided this problem by deferring to the Supreme Court that is presently passing upon the constitutionality of the proclamation itself. You see, Pinky, my problem with the proclamation is that, as I said, it is not a proclamation that declared the grant of amnesty per se void. It was a proclamation that had to do with a single person, namely Senator Trillanes, declaring that the extension of amnesty to him, or that his claim to amnesty was void.
Ab initio.
And the proclamation used certain factual premises. Naturally, if you sustain the proclamation, you also sustain its findings of fact.
So, when someone like Secretary Bernardo Guevara says, this is not a total victory for Senator Antonio Trillanes, you obviously agree because from how I understand it, Father, and I know you explain it very well, it's as if there's a little bit of a question mark. Parang sinabi mo, Judge, na constitutional yung proclamation, pero dinenay mo yung arrest. Parang ganon.
That's correct. Well, yes, of course the Justice Secretary is correct because from the order of the Judge Soriano, the government can always elevate the matter by any of the means that the rules provide, such as a petition for certiorari. But let me make my position clear, Pinky. I've always maintained that the proclamation is not legally correct.
Okay.
Because I do believe that declaring whether or not a person is lawfully entitled to amnesty and subsequently declaring his enjoyment of amnesty as void is properly a judicial function.
May I ask you, Father, because Senator Biazon is beside me. He
Good
raised,
morning, Senator. Good morning.
Good morning po.
Father, he raises a point as this, that the president has no power to unilaterally revoke an amnesty. As such, it needs the concurrence, it needs the permission, it needs the Congress to be able to do such a thing.
There is American jurisprudential support for that position. In fact, if you read the section on executive pardons and acts of clemency, including amnesty, in that multi-volumed work entitled American Jurisprudence, the entry is very clear that amnesty cannot be unilaterally revoked. It cannot be revoked out of hand. There has to be a procedure for that, which may involve Congress.
But then again, Father, baka sabihin nila that's America jurisprudence.
Well,
but of course,
our rules are closely cued according to American law, and there is no up-due Philippine president. And usually, Pinky, you know, in Philippine law, when we have no Philippine president to go by, we use American president. So that's not unheard of.
baka lang ho kasi tanungin, it's really because much of our laws and constitution is really based on American laws.
Yes.
All right, so Father, what could possibly be the next move? Malacanang is saying possibly the CA. Another source is telling me they might go to the Supreme Court because they did not remand this to the CA. They remanded it to the RTC. What kind of future, or what are we going to see in the next couple of days, you think?
Well, I will expect, of course, that the Department of Justice will bring this up. I predict that it will bring this up to the Supreme Court, because the question here is a pure question of law. And so I think that they'll bring up, of course, there are factual questions involved, like did he file or did he not file, but intrinsically connected with those questions are questions of law, like reliance on secondary evidence, things like that. So I think it will go up to the Supreme Court. But you see, Pinky, the problem is that's going to overlap with an action now pending in the Supreme Court. There's an action pending there now, eh. Yeah.
All right, Father Aquino, maraming salamat po sa inyo, and we wish to speak to you again.
Yes, Pinky, always a pleasure to talk to you. Good morning, Senator. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, Senator, ano po palagay niyo dun sa sinabi ni Father Aquino? Did he explain that? Pareho?
Yes.
Pareho po ang inyo.
This is a fundamental issue on in a democratic system where checks and balances are provided for. As a matter of fact, I see this as a very good example of the shared powers. You know, I'll give you an example, if I may. In 1991, the military basis agreement had to be terminated, or was on its termination period. President Aquino wanted the extension of the military basis agreement for 10 years. But she could not decide it alone.
On her own.
It had to be referred to the Senate, no? Which shared the power of the treaties, no? On the ratification of treaties and extension of treaties, etc., etc. President Aquino was pushing it. The Senate said no. Pinalayas natin yung Amerikano.
Right, I remember that.
So this is a shared power.
Okay, very quickly, sir, what do you think as such what happened to Senator Antonio Trillanes, how this will impact on other amnesties?
That's going to be another question. For example, was the process used for the determination of the validity of grant of amnesty to Trillanes different from the others, like Paeldon, etc., etc.? I heard something mentioned that Trillanes is singled out because he was the leader.
Yes.
If you might remember, I was there in the Oakwood.
I do remember.
And I had to call somebody else for the group of Trillanes, Gambala, Maestro Campo, Paeldon, etc., to allow me to go up to talk to them. I had to call somebody.
So, who is the leader?
I will not tell you.
And it's not, what you're saying is...
I cannot.
No, what you're saying is it's not Trillanes, Senator Trillanes.
He may not be. It may be somebody outside For example, maybe the one I was talking to, because I asked, I have no contact with the people upstairs. Can you get in touch with them?
Yes, yes.
And this guy
yes.
called by telephone.
Is it this guy, sir? It's this guy. Okay, all right. Anyway, we can't name that. Opo.
Because this is, it's unfair for this
Absolutely, of course, sir. One last question, sir, because we have to let you go. Just thoughts on extending a possible extension of martial law in Mindanao. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Do you agree or not?
This is also a shared power. Remember that the president being the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces, may call out the armed forces of the Philippines to suppress lawless violence, rebellion, invasion. Only in the case of rebellion and invasion requires the concurrence of Congress, and for a period of time only.
Of course,
and
yes.
if there are extensions, it needs a go signal
from Congress again.
From
but
Congress.
Do you think it should be extended? That's my question, sir. Sa palagay niyo po?
Well, I have yet to see an exact implementation of that power because yung suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, no, that is that is central to that issue. I have yet to see that anyone arrested had to put under that system. Kasi, may limitation eh. You are arrested under that declaration of suspension of the writ of habeas. You must be charged within 3 days.
Yes, tama.
Or else you are released.
All right, sir. Wala na po tayong oras. Pasensya na po. But I'm so happy to see you again. And thank you so much, Senator, for joining us. Thank you to Senator Rodolfo Biazon. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come. We have to show this. Is it a chicken or a sea cucumber? Find out the real nature of the so-called headless chicken monster. That's for today's In Focus.